Andy Burnham has just done a big speech on his plans for tackling the social care crisis in England and the UK, and he's come up with at the moment, a three-point plan. First of all is to fast-track a review by Baroness Louise Casey. That was triggered by former Prime Minister Keir Starmer. She's been doing that for about 18 months. It was due to finish towards the end of 2028. Andy Burnham has just said he wants it done within a year, so basically this time next year in 2027. The second point is to have a big input on social care pay and social care workers, and how he wants to kind of fast track that as well. He wants to focus on that before anything else. And his third point is he wants to have cross-party talks with the leaders of Conservative Party candidate and Ed Davey, who he referenced a couple of times in his speech. That's already gone down quite badly so far, because they're accusing him of not giving them much notice. Nigel Farage, Zach Polanski weren't even included in the talks that he's going to have later on today. So Burnham, he's just done a speech where he spoke for about 20 minutes with no notes. He said, I'm speaking from the heart, because his dad is suffering from Alzheimer's, and him and his family have been going through the heart-wrenching process of the last few years of caring for him. And to be fair to Burnham, he did speak passionately and very well, but then he started to ramble as he got into the nuts and bolts of social care. But he finished up with these 3 points. He's looking to fast track it, which a lot of campaigners would be happy about, but still no detail on how he's going to pay for it and what he's going to do to fund that, whether it's going to be tax rises and the like. He's talked about social care being like the NHS, and he wants NHS put a big focus on care workers, kind of improving their pay, improving their standards, improving their working environment, because he wants kind of one big workforce really working in social care and the NHS. He's seen it firsthand because of his father, and as have millions up and down the country. But a lot of work to do, but he's fast-tracking things at the moment.
Because the current situation, frankly, is bad for everybody. It's certainly bad for the people who don't get the care that they need. It's estimated today in England around 2 million adults have unmet care needs. Now, think about that for a moment and what that means. I can, again, certainly attest from family experience that it's too hard for the family carers. And the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, was quite right to talk about that on the radio this morning and say how important it is that we see people struggling in their homes, looking after a partner or a relative. It can break people if they're kind of left without that support that they need. In fact, it does break people, and that needs to be recognised. It needs to be recognised that people can see everything they've worked for wiped out by the costs of care. Hundreds of thousands of pounds can just disappear paying for care. Adults with disabilities will say that they face very unfair care charges just to live their life. That needs to be recognised. And let me come back to the staff doing what they do on poverty pay. I've been made aware of somebody homeless working in a care setting, living out of a mobile home. Just again, think about that. How can we enable those staff to give a real sense of security to the people they're looking after if they do not have it in their own lives? And it makes what they do all the more remarkable that they do care in the way that they do. But we cannot take them for granted, and we must not do that. So it's bad for everybody in this, but it's also bad for the National Health Service. And let me just say something about that. Again, I've had experience in the system as it currently is, which is trying to give out care in 15-minute slots, because honestly, that's all that councils say that they can afford for many people. It's fine if the needs are moderate and you can complete the task within that time slot, but what if they're not? What if the needs become moderate or severe and you try and carry out everything within 15 minutes? I can tell you from experience that that can be a recipe for quite significant chaos if you are not careful. And it leaves the staff in a really difficult position, because often what they are told, if they have a problem and they can't complete what they're doing, ring 999. Ring 999. And I heard a few kind of yeses in the audience and a few nods. I know, and I'm saying this, there'll be people watching who know what I'm talking about. That can be a really frightening experience, because it often isn't the case that that person needs hospitalisation. In fact, you could say it's the worst place for them to end up. But once that process is underway, it's very difficult to stop the drag of the system into hospital and then everything that comes from that. That's bad for the NHS too and the staff who work there. It's a lose-lose situation, because often people then spend a long time in A&E, a long time in hospital, but then fit to be discharged and can't be discharged. It just is a pressure that the NHS struggles to meet. And look at it in the numbers. Today, or on the latest figures, about 6 million people, just there or thereabouts, over 65, are going to A&E every year. Now, some of those will be from social care settings. If you go back to 2010, it was about half, roughly 3 million. So you can see that change in that period. Last month, 13,600 people were deemed medically fit to be discharged, but couldn't be. That was in an average across the month in England. 3,000 people every single day receiving corridor care. Corridor care. The trade unions now are monitoring corridor care. Do you remember there was a time when that was what you called the winter pressures? Well, these are year-round now, and staff in the NHS are trying to deal with those pressures every single day. And there's growing talk of burnout amongst NHS staff, because the pressure they are trying to deal with is simply too great. And it's not sustainable. If you think about all of those things, then you know the NHS cannot carry on in that position. And let's not have a conversation about social care as though it lives in its own silo. It doesn't live in its own silo. It's intrinsically linked to the National Health Service and what happens there.